Glance Technologies owns and operates Glance Pay, a disruptive mobile payment technology now live in 16 cities in Canada and about to launch in the US. With revenues up 664% in the last quarter, Glance Technologies has the potential to be a worldwide leader in an industry projected to grow to $1.3 trillion in 3 years. Glance Technologies stock symbols are GLNFF in the US and GET in Canada. Find out more at glancepay.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Jordan Bateman. He's the Communications Director for the Independent Contractors and Business Association. Welcome back to the show, Jordan.
Thanks for having me, Jim, and my sympathies to all of us Lower Mainland residents who are having to swim to work as the rains continue to pour from the heavens above.
I'll just thinking if not too long from now we'll have watering restrictions for the lawns.
It's kind of funny, right? Like, was it last year that we had the huge snowpack and still we had water restrictions in May and June? Kind of makes you wonder if Metro Vancouver is really keeping their eye on the ball there.
The NAFTA talks, we hear from the Canadian government that positive progress has been made. How important is NAFTA to your members?
Well, NAFTA's huge for our members. Now, first of all, I always take what the Canadian government says about dealing with Donald Trump with a big grain of salt. As we know, more than ever before, the Americans can turn on a dime on issues like this. So, I guess forward progress is better than no progress, but let's stay a little bit guarded here until the deal is signed and you see Donald Trump's signature on the bottom of that paper. We may just want to be careful. But listen, construction happens when economies are growing. So whether it's infrastructure is needed or shops or new homes, we need things to be getting built in order to have work for our construction folks. That ties directly to free trade. And, Canada is a relatively small economy, a relatively small population in the world. We do not have, a massive economy compared to the United States or China or Germany, countries like that. So, we need to make sure that we're trading. It's the only way for us to survive in the world. I mean, we cannot possibly create and grow and make everything that we're ever going to need right here in Canada. We have to be able to send, our resources, our goods elsewhere, and we have to be able to import products from other places. That, it's just a fundamental of a growing economy that you have good trade relationships. So, the fact that maybe NAFTA has turned a corner is good news. Certainly, I think, most of Donald Trump's anger was directed south, not north towards Canada. But, we're hoping that we see some good news on this file soon.
How could this de facto trade war between China and the U.S. affect British Columbia business?
Well, remember that there was that BC Liberal government ad way back when of the dominoes falling all around the world during the recession, and then it hits the one in BC, and BC stands strong against all the other falling dominoes. That's a complete myth. If the dominoes start falling in America, if recession grips the United States, recession is going to move into Canada, very Columbia. And, that's terrible news for any of us who love this place, who want to continue to see economic growth, who want to continue to see jobs and prosperity. So, the whole world, I think in this 24/7 news cycle, where every microaggression of Donald Trump is analyzed for days, I do think that we lose sight of the bigger, the biggest, most important issues. It's hard for us to separate what is an actual huge consequential issue. Let's just the controversy du jour. This is a huge, huge issue. Next month, we're having Chris Wallace come in. He is the Fox News Sunday host, former host of NBC's Meet the Press. He's coming to speak to ICBA members and guests at what we call our Industry Outlook Forum. And we're having him specifically because we need someone who can help us discern, what the hell the U.S. government is doing. We just, it's so difficult to read the tea leaves and really understand where they're going day to day. Chris Wallace, it's his job to make those analysis, make that to talk to those decision makers. We're hoping he can shed some light on that. And from there, we're going to have Brad Wall, the former Premier of Saskatchewan. He'll then kind of talk more about responsible resource development. And I'm sure he will have some strong words for our Premier and his continued opposition to Kinder Morgan.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after the break.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp Inc., MGI on the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected high-grade gold, including 16.9 meters of 13.58 grams and 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program is planned to further evaluate previously identified subsurface high-grade gold mineralization. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
MGX Minerals is revolutionizing the new energy economy with patented lithium extraction technology, replacing traditional solar evaporation using low-cost, low-energy nanofiltration. The first system of this paradigm shift technology is currently being commissioned. MGX Minerals trades on the CSE, symbol XMG, the OTCQB, symbol MGXMF, and Frankfurt, symbol 1MG. For more information, visit our website, mgxminerals.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, while people are busy protesting the oil pipeline they're trying to extend from Edmonton to Burnaby, there's another pipeline that's being built in Greater Vancouver. What is it, and is anybody worried about it?
Well, Fortis BC, they're upgrading their natural gas infrastructure, mainly along First Avenue, but beyond that as well. And it's a $500 million project. And, I got to say, we are tickled pink for Fortis that they got this through, that this has been approved, and that it's going to go forward. It wasn't too long ago that we were leading the fight against the City of Vancouver's plan to ban natural gas. That was something I used to write about when I was with the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. It's something that certainly bothered ICBA because it meant, would have meant higher energy costs for consumers. It would have really, it was just a spiteful thing. It had absolutely no basis in any kind of evidence-based decision making. Now, less than a year after they basically surrendered on that so-called natural gas ban, they're building new infrastructure. It's great news. We're hoping that a number of our companies, procure contracts, get into the ditch and build this thing. It's exciting news, and it's worth noting that in every community, in every part of, in every neighborhood, in every part of Canada, there are pipelines under the ground that people don't see. They're there. They've been operating safely sometimes for decades or longer. It's part of that. It's part of the fabric of what we need in order to, heat and light our homes and run our businesses and, run our schools and sterilize hospital tools, all those things. We need those pipelines like this one that's going in Vancouver. So, exciting that we're excited for Fortis that they finally are breaking ground on this very shortly.
Well, so many businesses said they need natural gas to heat their places efficiently because using electricity for heating is pretty inefficient. Yeah,
no, absolutely. It's natural gas. It is a clean-burning fossil fuel. I think you and I have talked about this many times. How perplexing it was that Vancouver would just unilaterally decide that natural gas was evil and needed to be snuffed out. Of all the things to worry about and to govern or legislate out of existence, natural gas should not be high on anyone's list. It's a reasonably cheap fuel. It's been transported safely for decades throughout British Columbia. It's a cornerstone of our provincial economy, and it's something that we need to continue to encourage.
Jordan, what's the big number one issue right now for independent business?
Well, for us at ICBA, we're still working on the labor code stuff, and we're very concerned with the NDP's. The NDP for a long time has had a very cozy relationship with the building trades unions. What the NDP fails to understand is that a lot has changed since the 1990s when they were in power last. In the 70s and 80s, 85% of construction in BC outside the residential sector was done by those traditional building trades unions. But 40 years later, the world has changed. The marketplace has changed. Jobs have changed. And now, traditional building trades unions only account for about 15% of the overall construction in the province of British Columbia. Yet now the NDP are so hell-bent on tilting the playing field to favor those 15%, they are going to drive construction costs on public projects through the roof. And this idea that you have to force everyone into a certain box, a union box headed by Tom Sigurdsson, the building trades unions, in order to build something in BC is just preposterous. It's old-fashioned thinking. It's not even 1990s thinking. It's 1970s thinking. It's something that the BC NDP really need to give their head a shake on. We understand these unions have given them millions of dollars. We understand that they've provided them with candidates. A number of their activists are now cabinet ministers. But look, the world has changed. The days of trying to force people into joining unions those are long gone. We need more open shop. We need more progressive unions. We need more employee associations. The companies that are doing 85% of the work in British Columbia.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after this.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO, on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain's Brunswick property is located in the Rideout Shear Zone in Ontario, with grab samples running as high as 32 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program to test numerous targets located by recent groundwork is planned for early 2018. Please visit our website at rmroyalty.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, earlier in the week, they announced that Ottawa would be handing over the necessary money for 3 major transit projects in the lower mainland of British Columbia. Can you tell us about it?
I feel a little bit like I'm in Groundhog Day. It seems like we get these announcements over and over again. It was announced in the federal budget. It was announced after, how many times does the federal government have to say, yeah, we're at the table with 40% of the money? The province has done the same thing multiple times. They've said they're at the table with 40% of the money. The municipalities finally have said that they have a way to pay for their 20% share. And yet, Jim, do you see anything being built? Nothing yet. So politicians love to talk. They love to make these announcements. They need to shut up and actually do the hard work to get these things going and in the ground. And where that starts is with actually releasing what the cost of these projects are going to be. We have not seen updated costs on Surrey Light Rail, the Patello Bridge, or on the Broadway corridor. The last costs we saw were from 2011. We have no idea if they've gone up, if they've gone down, if they've held the line. We know from various reports and research that TransLink has done other cost studies, but they will not release what those costs are. So, until politicians start telling us actually what these things are going to cost, I take these announcements and re-announcements with a bit of a grain of salt. Metro Vancouver, also, we should talk about this. Metro Vancouver has also found themselves in a complete mess of their own making when it comes to what they're paying their politicians.
Well, didn't they give themselves golden parachute retroactive to 10 years ago?
20 years ago, I think
20?
it was. Yeah, was it 10 or 20? Anyways, basically, yes. So they want to give an $1,100 per year severance for any Metro director who isn't reappointed, who doesn't run for re-election. And, snuck through on a Friday afternoon as an amendment to another report that no one had ever, heard of. The media were shocked. And, not surprisingly, the public went crazy. And, I just want to take a moment here and talk briefly about politician pay. I was a municipal councillor. I did once vote to increase the salaries of the next group of people who were going to serve as councillors. Not my own pay because, when I ran for election, no one held a gun to my head. No one, I knew what the deal was going in. I didn't need to, feather my own nest, but I wanted to deal with the pay for the next group. The biggest problem these guys have is that they go to the public and they try to justify it by saying, oh, we have to attract good people and, we have to pay a competitive wage. Jim, there is no competition for politicians. There is no competitive market for politicians. It's not like, Greg Moore is going to jump ship from being Metro Vancouver chair and join the Capital Regional District as chair because he could get $10,000 a year more. There is no competitive market. It is the biggest farce for them to suggest that there is. And it makes me angry because they're taking people for rubes. They're thinking that people are stupid. There's absolutely no competition. Look, with politicians, some are overpaid, some are underpaid. What you think of each one is in the eye of the beholder. There's just no way. Like a great mayor, a great municipal councillor is worth their weight in gold. Would we love to find a way to give them more money? Sure. A bad one should be punished and paid less. Sure. How do you determine that? It's in the eye of the beholder. So you can't possibly, pay them to reflect some sort of open market. And I always think of former Calgary Mayor Rod Sykes, who wrote a book called Take Back City Hall, and he argued that increasing political pay actually led to less qualified candidates seeking office, because he felt that the compensation meant that only professional politicians would apply. They basically created professional politicians, and it got rid of that idea of civic duty. And, frankly, given the talent level around our tables at most municipal halls in British Columbia, it's hard not to agree.
Well, years ago, it seemed to me a lot of politicians served as a public service and didn't even get salaries.
Yeah, exactly. So back in the day, they used to have, you get a stipend, and a third of it was tax-free in lieu of expenses you incurred when you were driving around to public meetings or checking things out. Government, eventually politicians kept that tax-free allowance, but then added the ability to claim expenses. One of the things Metro Vancouver did was, the federal government got rid of that tax credit for municipal politicians. So Metro Vancouver immediately increased everyone's pay by 11% to cover it off. Well, Jim, when you and I face a tax increase handed down by these mayors on our property taxes year after year after year, did they ever give us a raise to pay for them? No, of course not. So these politicians rush to the trough to make sure that, they get a raise to cover off their tax increase. It's embarrassing. It's one of these things that makes, municipal councils seem so Mickey Mouse. And frankly, it was a huge mistake by Greg Moore, the chair of Metro Vancouver. Then he goes on the rounds and defends it. Then he goes to Australia on a junket, and then from Australia he comes back and says, "Oh, we're gonna peel it back. We made a mistake." Good leaders are the ones who don't make these mistakes in the first place. I think Metro Vancouver should be embarrassed.
Do politicians have to make these international trips?
Usually, no. No, look, they go to Brisbane, Australia to look at the transit system. The former head of the Brisbane transit system works for TransLink now, Vivian King. There's no one on earth who knows more about the Brisbane transit system than Vivian King. And yet, Greg Moore, who's leaving office this fall, is not running for re-election. He's on a junket there. It seems to me like must be nice. Must be nice to go on spring break to Australia, paid for by taxpayers. That takes a whole level of chutzpah that, frankly, I never had as a municipal councillor.
Jordan, if you had a message for the BC government right now to make sure small business stays active and growing, what would it be?
Rethink your payroll tax. This is becoming a bigger and bigger issue. I was reading the Delta papers, and the Big Brothers, Big Sisters have come out. The Delta Gymnastics Foundation. Delta's Gymnastics Foundation is expecting a new line item cost of almost $27,000 to cover this payroll tax. Well, that's going to mean one of two things. They're going to cut services, or they're going to raise prices on, families who are already concerned about affordability. This is a bad tax. It's one that was not well thought out. It kind of, the NDP tax policy has been terrible, helter-skelter to begin with the speculation tax that doesn't actually tax speculators. And now, this payroll tax. Smarten up, take some time, and really look through what you're doing when you're tinkering with the tax system, because there are a lot of unintended consequences that this government doesn't seem to ever see coming.
Right, and that payroll tax is to pay medical premiums, isn't it?
Well, that's what they claim. The problem is it goes into general revenue. The other problem is it actually is the same amount. They're going to double dip for a year, collect medical services premiums and this tax. So really, it's a way for them to pretend that, to say that they balance the budget while still increasing their spending.
Jordan, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me.
My guest has been Jordan Bateman, Communications Director for the Independent Contractors and Business Association. Their website, icba.ca. You're listening to the Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Any questions for the show can be sent to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.